Got it.
All right. So when I go to sew binding on and turn the mitered corner, I leave about 7 inches loose. All right. And so I want to use this side. So we're just going to leave that loose, and I'm going to start stitching here. And you're going to use your 3/8 inch seam allowance. All right. Then when you come near the corner, just guesstimate where about 3/8 is to stop. And if you go too far, don't worry. Now, take it out, completely cut it, lift this, and come straight up. This must be a parallel line, and it doesn't matter what angle you're turning. If you're turning a 60-degree angle because you're doing a hexagon table runner, you do the exact same thing, and whatever the next side you're going to sew, the binding has to be straight. Then you'll get the angle, press it in with your finger, then fold it down. A lot of people make the mistake and leave it higher. That's wrong. You want to come and bring it just so you can barely see the quilt edge here. And then I always check to make sure that these two folds are next to each other. Follow me? Mm-hmm. All right, then you're gonna keep sewing. And you start off the edge of that and sew all the way to the next one. And where do I stop? So about there. And if you go too far, just pull a stitch out. If you go too short, just don't worry. Don't worry, be happy. There you go. Fold it up, bring it down, make sure these two folds line up, and continue on. I like to press these. When I open my binding, I press the side, and then I press this side, and I press that point in with an iron. All right. When you go to the back side, you're going to stitch from here, and you're going to come in, come in, come in, and then this should fold down. Let me try it on here. So you're going to bring this in, and this is really bulky. Okay, here's one little trick. It's really bulky and it's hard to turn. Before you do it, there's a fold here at the top. Take your little scissors, come into that fold where you made that miter. See there? Mm-hmm. Clip it. This is the booger that causes all the problem. That hidden little triangle, clip it. Now, when you take that out and you go to fold it, it's not going to be as bulky. And if you have a flannel quilt, it's even better to not leave that booger in there. Then you work this just like I showed you to work your mitered corner and then stitch it down. If you're doing, you always want to go up and stitch a little bit on that miter. And if you're doing a quilt for a show, poke it through to this side and stitch this side of the miter down as well. They will take points off, and it could cost you a first place. You'll get second place. All right. I'm gonna do, before I made my binding, I put this in, this triangle. Remember I told you always fold to your belly? Fold a triangle down to your belly. I call that the magic triangle. Now, I'm gonna do this in 2 colors so that it's a little more visible. So let's just say I was coming along here and then I turned my corner, and so here's the ending of my binding, right? I'm coming to the end. So I'm just gonna attach this. So let's just pretend I turned the miter corner and I start stitching, and I'm going to give myself plenty of space. So plenty of loose binding, it's not all attached, see? So what you want to do is bring this in here and just have him lay flat. Then you bring him and you just spoon him. Get what I mean? Yeah. You're spooning, but everybody's laying flat, so I know it's going to fit. Now, I call the inside of this the meat and potatoes. Lift up the potatoes, or lift up the bread, actually, the top, and find the meat and the cheese. And that triangle is the cheese. Pinch them together. 1 pin. That's all I'm allowed to ever have is 1 pin. Then the girls at the quilt shop forbid me to use pins. And I pin that triangle, and I pin that loose end coming in, just like so. When you open them up, what do you have? Remember how I told you I sew on the
Yeah, that
crease?
pressed crease.
So when I press that triangle in, I got my crease. So I'm gonna just wiggle this till the raw ends are lined up, and this top of the crease is at the top of the binding. Stitch it right on the crease. And the part that's most important is down here at the bottom, to get those raw edges to line up. And then I just take some scissors. I never even check it first. I'm very arrogant. Trim it to about 1/4 of an inch. Don't worry, because nobody sees the inside of the binding but you and God. Then I finger press this open, and like so. And then when I bring it down, hee-haw.
It fits perfect.
And I didn't use any tools, and I didn't have to measure anything, and I didn't have to think about it, because I had that magic triangle in there that showed me everything I needed to do. Now, then you just stitch it, finish stitching it. So, and I usually start back a little bit. And if it's a little bit full, don't worry, just stitch over it. If you get a bubble, as long as the bubble's on the inside here, on the top that you see it, don't worry about it. Why?
It's hidden.
It's going to be hidden. Nobody's going to see the bubble but you and God. Then if you have a bubble on the other side, you have an issue. But see, I have a perfect binding joining. It fit, and I didn't swear.
Yeah.